Folks, just before this video starts, I want to say a massive thank you for getting this channel to 2,000 subscribers. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the video. Well, now I have to clean this up. Oh man. No. The Child's Play franchise, full of murder, panic, and the delightful cackle of Bride of Chucky. I love it. This franchise so far has sent me through far more emotions than I ever thought possible. Blatantly obvious, lit up carnival. But see, I am in a predicament. There's more of them. But surely nothing can get more insane than the original trilogy, right? Right? See, when I watched Child's Play 3, I mentioned it didn't feel as if it knew what it wanted to be. Was it a horror? Was it a black comedy? Was it a romance? Was it an enlightening political commentary on arms control?
This is my rifle, this is my gun!
This is for shooting, and this is for fun.
Well, here's the thing about The Bride of Chucky. This film knows exactly what it is. It's camp, it's comedy, it's horror, it's goth romance. And it's 100% aware of its own ridiculousness.
Stop him!
This isn't the Chucky from the first Child's Play, you know, the one who haunted your nightmares as a terrifying little demon. By 1998, Chucky had evolved, because let's face it, Bride of Chucky is hilarious. So the writer, Don Mancini, probably just looked at the final script of Bride of Chucky and just laughed.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Plus, we got Ronnie Yu as the director who ended up doing Freddy vs. Jason, so figures. This was his first Hollywood film after coming from the Hong Kong scene, so you don't just get a tonal change, you also get this really unique visual aesthetic. Oh my god, sometimes I forget how good this film looks. It looks so good because not only did they shoot on 35mm to give you that textured aesthetic, but a lot of work was also done on sound stages, which is a far more malleable environment. A lot of beautiful films were shot on stages like this, and for Bride in particular, I imagine Don wanted it to be as gritty and as gothic as possible, while still remaining grounded in the time period it's in. It's not dissimilar to other visually captivating films, such as Taxi Driver or Over the Hedge. The film starts with Tiffany Valentine, played by Jennifer Tilly, and she murders a police officer in order to get the remains of the Chucky doll. She's aware it was possessed by her ex, Charles Lee Ray, and she wants him back. Also, I have to mention the obvious, Chucky looks significantly different now. His face is all scarred up, he's got stitches in.
I've got several stitches.
It's very Frankenstein's monster. You also get a lot of Hellraiser references. But Bride of Chucky doesn't just mock these things, it kind of subverts your expectations of these genre tropes. It's not just there to be kind of surface level humour. When most people think of Chucky, I think this is the image which comes to mind, and I have to say, how Chucky looks in this film is my favourite version of him.
I'll steer and you can work the pedals.
He's got more emotional range just physically, and he looks weathered now. He's been through the trenches, you know? I mean, I like that he isn't polished. This plays into the change of tone too. Previously, the point of Chucky was his ability to blend in and gain the trust of children, which never stops sounding questionable. It approached this idea of corrupted innocence, but now he needs a new purpose in life. He can't be subtle anymore, and this is great because nobody wants the films to get repetitive, despite how many times he comes back to life. In the meantime, we are introduced to our other characters, Jesse and Jade, and also David. He's there too, he's a friend. In a way, they are also trapped in their own confines, and they kind of want to escape their family life and elope, just to be together. Voodoo for Dummies, oh my god. I wonder if that's an actual book. Oh my god, someone's actually made it on Etsy. So Tiffany performs voodoo, and Charles returns to the land of the living once more in the form of Chucky, with a touch of murder as the cherry on top. You just can't go without it in these films.
I'll catch my death out here. I'm on your lawn, Nevercracker.
Yummy. God, I love Tiffany so much. She brings her own brand of mayhem, her own set of problems, and her own beliefs about love and romance. She's a serial killer with dreams of settling down, getting married, and maybe, just maybe, living in a spooky little trailer with a white picket fence. It's the doll equivalent of Bonnie and Clyde, so to speak. Chucky has been given so much more dimension, and honestly, the way Brad and Jennifer bounce off each other is one of my favourite things about this film.
You know, Chucky, I still have the ring.
What ring? Oh, that, the one I got from Vivian Van Pelt.
Vivian who?
Vivian Van Pelt. I dumped her in the river. Remember, that ring is worth $5 or $6 grand, easy.
I know the other Child's Play films would have been like hilarious to shoot, but I feel like if I was an AC on this specific set, I would need intermittent breaks, probably because I would just not be able to stop laughing. Yeah, it would have been that good.
You weren't gonna ask me to marry you?
What are you, fucking nuts?
As edgy and as nuts as she is, Tiffany believes in romance, or at least some form of it. So she brings Chucky back to life, not because she misses him, but because she's got standards and she's gonna make him pay for not living up to them. This is referenced pretty well by the score. We got Rob Zombie's Living Dead Girl, which really encapsulates Tiff's character. She hasn't really even lived since losing Charles. She's a really sad character, especially after being stuck in this trailer for so many years. It's kind of a prison for someone like her, yearning for the idea of love, but receiving it in a package of manipulation and suffering.
First thing we gotta do is get me out of this body once and for all.
So when Chucky refuses to marry her, she just locks him in a playpen with a bride doll. There were so many people who couldn't handle Chucky, and Tiffany just locks him up like it's nothing.
You are so dead.
So Chucky eventually escapes and electrocutes Tiffany, and because he is the pettiest person in the universe, he transfers Tiffany into the doll she gave him. So now Tiffany is also a doll. No. No, absolutely not. God. What happens next is such an iconic sequence, and it's quite special to me because it's what introduced me to this entire franchise. When I was a young kid, I used to go to the pub a lot with my granddad. Makes it sound like I started drinking at a young age, I didn't. My granddad has since passed away, and I think that pub also got turned into a gym. I distinctly remember, and this is a weird core memory I have, but there was a TV above the bar, quite an old TV. They just let it run, play whatever, usually sports. And the bar staff actually ended up quickly turning it off because they saw I was watching it, because it was playing Bride of Chucky. And it was playing this exact scene. Still to this day, one of my favourite montages in film. Yeah, it's a doll putting on makeup. Yes, it's a masterpiece. We got this Elvira meets Debbie Harry vibe.
Barbie, eat your heart out.
So now both murderers have become dolls, and they decide to hunt down the amulet of Damballa, which Chucky has only just realised was buried with his old body. I guess his preference really was just to chase after children.
You need me, otherwise you're stuck like this for good.
The heart of Damballa.
Basically, the amulet will allow someone to transfer their soul into another living being. In order to get the amulet, Chucky and Tiffany decide the best way is by coercing Tiffany's neighbours to transport them alongside using their bodies as their new vessels to possess. Obviously, the neighbours, Jesse and Jade, have no idea the dolls are actually alive. Jade's uncle doesn't approve of this, so he plants a bag of marijuana in their van. But it's alright because the dolls handle the situation in a very mature manner.
No! Heavy.
I found this concept so good because you have two couples who couldn't be more different from one another, and it effectively becomes a cat and mouse chase in the confines of a van travelling across the country. It's a little bit of a Heathers vibe meets Thelma and Louise. Of course, along the way, Chucky and Tiffany just can't help themselves but slaughter people, like Officer Norton, who finds the marijuana. Again, the dolls handle this in a very respectful way. This little crawl always makes me laugh. This movie absolutely trashes a load of horror tropes. The Bride of Chucky takes the couple dynamic to absurd new heights, and it's constantly being self-aware. The dolls aren't just murdering randoms, they're debating who is the better killer, who's tougher, who's got the better murder style. I mean, there is a scene where Tiffany calls Chucky out for being lazy and not going after his victims with enough flair.
What are you talking about?
For God's sake, Chucky, drag yourself into the 90s. Stabbings went out with Bundy and Dahmer. You look like Martha Stewart with that thing.
Who the fuck is Martha Stewart?
My idol?
And like, the insult is that he just uses knives too much, as if the true crime is his lack of creativity. As Jesse and Jade are struggling to stay alive, their relationship is getting a little bit strained, mostly because they aren't sure whether or not their partner is a murderer. They're not sure if they can trust each other. On the flip side, the violence is actually bringing Chucky and Tiffany closer together.
You don't think that I had anything to do with that explosion back there, didn't you? No. Announced in front of us.
Nevertheless, Jesse and Jade decide to get married. Very sweet. And after witnessing someone steal Jesse's wallet, Tiffany does something which only makes Chucky love her even more. Yeah, shock. She kills people. To be fair, this kill is amazing. You know, in the Child's Play franchise, when Charles gets stuck inside of Chucky's body for too long, he starts to get kind of more fleshy and starts developing all sorts of organs. It's a little bit visceral, but yeah. So, oh man, there's no easy way to explain this. So in this movie, there's so much tension and strange romance that the dolls actually have sex. Yep, this is a thing that exists. This scene is as bizarre as you can imagine. Oh my god. What is going on?
Bloody hell.
Oh my god, no! No! I want whatever Don was smoking when he wrote this. It's almost touching how much they like each other. They're having this bizarre heart-to-heart about how hard it is to be a killer doll, and it's like, somehow, you kind of buy it. So the next morning, the two couples flee alongside David. David establishes to the couple that they are in serious trouble, despite not believing himself that they are the murderers. This, of course, is until he finds Warren's body.
David, I didn't do a shit! Shut up!
Keep in mind, Chucky and Tiffany will stop at nothing to protect the bodies they want to possess. So, guess what they do? Nah, surprisingly, they actually don't kill him. Technically, David gets himself killed. But now, the couple knows that Chucky and Tiffany are alive. So, it's time to act fast. If you're enjoying this video, feel free to subscribe, it means the world.
Those dishes aren't gonna wash themselves, you know. What are you doing?
By the end, The Bride of Chucky becomes a story of betrayal and conflict. Jesse and Jade cause an argument between the dolls, and Tiffany gets kicked into an oven. Jesus Christ. Chucky seizes the opportunity to make Jade recover the amulet for him. The film culminates in a showdown at the cemetery where Charles Lee Ray's body is buried, and both Chucky and Tiffany's plans kind of start to unravel. Tiffany, who was actually starting to feel remorse, kind of realizes the depth of Chucky's ruthlessness, and yeah, she's not a fan anymore. Holy shit, this is shot like a historical epic. Why is this so amazing? What is going on? Oh my god! She ultimately turns against him, and after a violent struggle, Tiffany and Chucky are defeated, with Chucky seemingly killed once again. Yeah, right, okay. I'm not falling for that anymore. So, oh boy, okay, here we go. The film ends in a shocking twist because Tiffany is laying on the floor and her body suddenly convulses, and she gives birth to a tiny, screaming doll baby. Yeah, Tiffany and Chucky had a baby. We went from this to this. My god, what happened? This movie is unapologetically trashy and funny, and it's so rewatchable. The best part is that The Bride of Chucky doesn't need you to take any of it seriously, because it's so unhinged. It's kind of romantic. Kinda. I know people get very confused from the huge tonal change, especially from the original Child's Play trilogy to the Chucky films, but the introduction of Tiffany as a character to me was just such a stroke of genius because of her back and forth with Chucky. It's such a bizarre character I'm not sure a lot of people would have expected, and yeah, okay, it turned it into a comedy, but you know what? This is so welcome. But it's not like they didn't put any effort into it. I mean, the production value of this film is insane. Not to mention the cinematography. I mean, this whole thing is so stylized. It's like so punchy. I love it. It's having way too much fun to care about anyone who would even think of criticizing it. In a world of recycled horror tropes and jump scares, The Bride of Chucky stands out as something genuinely unique. The creators just kind of took a step back and decided, let's just have a good time. The soundtrack is amazing as well. I think the music chosen for this film not only adds to the themes of the film, which is always what any audience member would want, you know, they have to have meaning to them, but it also adds to the iconography of this film. It kind of is timeless. Really hard to rank because these films are unbelievably different from the original Child's Play franchise. So my head wants to put it here because no, critically it's not as good as Child's Play 2, but my heart actually wants to put it here because of how many times I've seen this film and how purely entertaining it is, and it holds a special place in my heart. Alright, I'll follow my mind. Okay, I'll follow my mind. Now, things are about to get spicy. The Seed of Chucky is the greatest film ever made in the history of humankind. Oh, come on, man. I know they called it Seed of Chucky, but this is just ridiculous. This opening sequence kind of sets the tone for the rest of the film. You know, I guess if Bride of Chucky was gritty and grungy, this is just gross. No, seriously though, this film, as wild as it is, has themes which I thought would never see the light of day in a franchise like this. And it kind of becomes a recurring theme, especially in the series. So the first scene you get is kind of beat for beat the exact same as Halloween. Oh, and also Psycho. I don't know why they're trying to reference so many random horror films in this film. I don't know if they think it's smart or... okay. At least Bride of Chucky made it subtle and actually played with the idea of it. This film just... oh boy. Oh no. He's pissed himself. Seed of Chucky starts by introducing us to Glenn, or Glenda, the offspring of Chucky and Tiffany. Glenn is living in the UK, being mistreated as a ventriloquist's dummy in a freak show. Standard stuff, of course, in the UK. Glenn is a timid, gentle character who is haunted by dreams of murder, and yet is deeply averse to violence. We have seen some internal conflict going on. Also, their name is Shitface at the start of the film.
The greatest ventriloquist in all of England! The psychotic
Glenn was also voiced by Billy Boyd, who of course played Pippin in Lord of the Rings.
Luncheon, afternoon tea. I don't know much about myself. I know I'm an orphan. I know I'm a freak. And of course, I know that I'm Japanese.
What? Why would he even be Japanese? The good guy's doll was made in Chicago. Maybe it's Tiff's side. Alright, I found a Reddit post about this, and I think it's just because Chucky was made out of a bunch of different parts, and Tiffany found those parts, and that is now genetic. That is a thing. Why do I care? I'm already going insane and I'm like 5 minutes into this film. I guess all of the dolls have some bizarre relation to Middle-earth, like Brad was Wormtongue, Jennifer Tilly was that weird looking alien thing. Oh wait, that's Monsters Inc. After discovering that his parents are famous horror movie stars, Glenn travels to Hollywood and uses the Amulet of Damballa to resurrect Chucky and Tiffany. Who are pretty surprised to discover they have a child, despite him bursting out of Tiff in the previous film.
Tiff?
Chucky?
Chucky prefers the name Glenn, whilst Tiffany prefers Glenda. So we immediately have the theme of the story laid out for us. In a Chucky film, of all things, it's about identity.
Yeah. He just hasn't had his growth spurt yet.
The decision between the names Glenn or Glenda is also probably a homage to the 1953 film of the same name.
Don, when he asked me to do it, said he wanted it, Glenn, to be like a Dickensian, a kind of character, a sort of Oliver Twist. But I thought, well, when it's Glenda, it should be something different.
I think Don's continued inclusion of sexuality in his work is a great thing. I mean, it's a reflection of his own life, and if a writer wants to incorporate those elements, all power to them. It gives the story a personal flair anyways, and I love stories that have something to say. As insane as Seed of Chucky is, and it is insane. I'm no expert in any of this, so I can only say so much, but the attempt to explore Glenn or Glenda's non-binary identity, it was ahead of its time, but I think the approach of this film, it just lacked the nuance and it relied on the stereotypical humour, which really detracted from the gravity of the subject matter. Again, I'm not the most knowledgeable person, but it seems like a very sensitive subject that just wasn't really taken seriously, and I think a lot of people picked up on that, even back then.
It's up.
Merry Christmas. Chucky and Tiffany quickly fall into old habits, embracing murder whilst navigating the strange family dynamics, including the conflict between Chucky's desire for Glenn to become a real killer and Tiffany's attempts to reform for Glenn's sake. So Tiffany is on a quest to revive her career and land a serious movie role. This is because of her infatuation with actress Jennifer Tilly, who also plays Tiffany. Yep, this is getting meta now, because Jennifer was also in Bride of Chucky, except she's a separate character to this Jennifer. Okay, it all gets kind of complicated. Just take it as face value, okay? These films are really dumb, but it is what it is. It's not surprising at all as to why this film had an underwhelming performance at the box office. It had a $12 million budget, which was a lot lower than the others, and it only ended up making $24.8 million worldwide. Can we be surprised? Not really. See, with Bride of Chucky, they kind of did find a balance between the absurdist comedy and parody, and the Bride is not perfect by any means, but it still kind of felt like an original product with a lot of personality. But Seed of Chucky really leaned into this parody so much to the point that everything feels exaggerated. I mean, even the dolls, the voices feel exaggerated, the characters feel like caricatures, and sometimes I feel like the film tries to be a lot smarter than it really is, and I know it features a lot of meta commentary, again with Jennifer Tilly playing herself. I feel like they're trying a little bit too hard to make this you know, kind of smart. The other problem is when you go into these two films, especially Seed, you have audience expectations of what makes a Child's Play film work, and this has none of those elements. It's completely twisted all the characters, it's twisted the tone, and some people might like it as its own product, and I think it's very healthy to look at Bride and Seed specifically and say, these are two things which exist in a completely different category. It was a time of experimentation. Maybe it could be considered quite a dark time. But with this meta humour thing that Don really wanted to push in these films, it was just an overload, and I think it alienated a lot of people. No way, they got Redman in this film? Playing as Redman. I've come to terms with the fact that everyone just plays as themselves.
Damn now.
Are you a pair of ninja assassins?
Huh?
Are you hitmen for the Yakuza?
We're not from Japan.
It's just really weird going from Bride of Chucky to this because the cinematography is completely different, the colour is different, the tone is... I don't like it. Tiffany becomes obsessed with her and decides that Jennifer would be the perfect human host for her soul. Chucky, on the other hand, plans to possess Redman, a director who is working with Jennifer Tilly.
Oh, let's quit, Chucky. Right now. Cold turkey.
No
more killing. We can't do it anymore. We have a future to think of. We have a child.
Fine.
I actually love that Tiffany has an internal battle. You know, she tries to stop murdering as part of her rehab to kind of get on Glenda's side, and she even goes to the lengths of calling up a hotline to talk about her urges, just murderous impulses. Oh my god, I forgot John Waters was in this. It's such a random cast, what's going on? If the film wasn't already out there, they knock out Jennifer so that Chucky can impregnate her with a turkey baster. What the actual... fuck.
Here we go. Get it, mini-meat.
Make it end. Please. Make it end. Basically, Tiffany and Chucky decide they want Jennifer to have a child, so Glenn too can have a new human body. Yeah, it's wrong on so many levels. So while Tiffany is struggling with her internal conflict, Chucky goes on a killing spree. I guess some things just don't change. He takes Glenn with him on one of these murders, hoping to teach him the family trade. One thing's for sure, this film isn't boring. That might be the best thing I can say. Glenn accidentally ends up killing John, but there is a small part of him that actually feels exhilarated. It teases us with this idea that there is a little bit of Chucky inside of Glenn. That is a sentence. The split personality begins to show itself in Glenn's character. Sometimes he embodies a shy, gentle boy, but at other times, he becomes Glenda. This Glenda personality represents the side of Glenn that embraces violence.
You're not fat.
No, I am fat. I'm huge. For the love of Mary, I'm pregnant.
Anyways, Jennifer is actually fired from the film she's working on because Redman had a vasectomy, plus he doesn't find her attractive anymore. So, Tiff kills him. So he's not gonna scream or shout or anything? Okay.
Oh, Glenda, honey. Everything's okay.
So only just after being impregnated, Jennifer... oh my god, this is confusing. Jennifer already looks as though she's about 9 months in, because voodoo, innit mate? I feel like voodoo becomes a narrative cheat code in these films, just the further they go on. Like, oh, we have a problem to solve, okay, voodoo it. Just sprinkle a little bit of voodoo on it.
Jennifer, what's wrong?
Finally, Chucky can be human once more after... how many films? In the chaotic climax, Tiffany and Chucky's plans spiral out of control. Glenn is caught in between his parents' clashing expectations and undergoes a total psychotic break, resulting in the death of Joan, Jennifer's assistant.
But one thing I do know for sure. I don't want to be a killer.
I feel like every Chucky film has this one distinct moment in it. You know, one moment that you're just like, This is peak cinema. You got this scene, you got that scene. Well, this is the moment in the film where when me and my girlfriend watched it for the first time, we were, no exaggeration, crying with laughter. Like, to the point where we still quote this line to each other on a weekly basis. So, here it is.
Glenn, wake up.
Stop it, Mummy. You wrinkle my dress.
Oh my god. I love it. I love it so much, man. It's so good. I'm actually crying. Oh my god.
Guess again, Daddy. I just fired Joan.
Looks like you went after all, Tiff.
Right? Like mother, like daughter. Get it? Mother and daughter, mother, daughter.
Oh, Mummy, stop it, Mummy. You'll wrinkle my dress.
Glenn fully embodies their Glenda personality, adopting a sinister look and murderous behaviour. Glenda confronts Chucky, rejecting their father's attempts to mould them into a killer. Glenda's inner turmoil erupts, so at the last moment, Tiffany also changes her mind. Embracing their own sense of morality, it's a very deep sentence to describe this film. You also have to remember that Seed of Chucky came out in such a weird time because it was facing competition like Saw, The Grudge. I mean, come on, like, you're gonna struggle here. See, this stuff was leaning heavily into the atmospheric horror and the gore, and in comparison, Seed of Chucky just felt really outdated and just cheap. It really put an emphasis on the campy nature which Chucky was taken to, and it focused on practical effects rather than the psychological or visceral scares which you would get a lot in these, horror films which were coming out during this time of the early 2000s. It's just another aspect of this film which kind of led it to not resonate with fans. The great majority audiences who would expect something out of a Child's Play film is now seeing themes of things they just don't really understand yet, and they are certainly not getting delivered it in the right way. Stan sacrifices himself to save Jennifer, and she gets rushed to the hospital. Tiffany pursues them and drugs Jennifer because she's just so desperate to have a new life. I like that she somewhat retained the ideal she had from Bride of Chucky because ultimately she wanted her own life, not just to return back to her body, even though it's literally the same actor, but it's because she wanted to find purpose in life, and this seemed like the only route she could take at the time, kind of without Chucky. When you deep it, there's actually a lot of things in this film that are really weirdly dark. I can't stop thinking about that turkey baster. And just as Tiffany performs the ritual, Chucky rocks up because again, my guy can't perish. As a final victory, it's actually Glenn, not Glenda, who kills Chucky with an axe. Because no matter what your identity is, there is always room in your heart to chop someone up. Alright, look, Chucky deserved it.
Let's go.
I really started to think, do I really want to do this anymore, to be honest?
To be fair, he actually praises Glenn despite getting mutilated because he knows there is a bit of bloodlust in his child. It's a very strange but wholesome moment. So, in the epilogue, the human form of Glenn is shown living in Jennifer Tilly's home. I say human form, it's actually humans. Glenn's identity has been split between twins.
Glenn, he's an angel, an absolute dream. But Glenda, she's a bad girl, Miss Tilly.
One part of him still embraces Glenn's gentle nature, whilst the other part embraces the violent half of Glenda. On his birthday, Glenn receives a disturbing package containing Chucky's dismembered arm, which springs to life and attacks him, hinting that Chucky's influence and his legacy are far from over. What did I just watch? Seed of Chucky goes all the way. It straddles multiple genres, it tries to mix horror, comedy and social satire with a meta cinematic lens, but the issue is, it's just kind of silly. This film, like Bride of Chucky, is completely self-aware. It acknowledges its own place in pop culture, and it starts to parody the very industry it's part of. Is it a critically successful film? No, it's the lowest rated out of all of them. And yes, it has some questionable moments, which I want to say wouldn't run today, but, you know, if Terrifier exists, then anything can. Despite how far down the rabbit hole it goes, I weirdly enough enjoy watching this film, or at least parts of it. I think Seed of Chucky fits fairly comfortably into that so bad it's good category, where you kind of go back and watch it now and again to just have a laugh at like how ridiculous it is. Whereas something like Child's Play 3 I find a little more boring. I think it has less to say, but you know, in terms of quality of filmmaking and just general tone, I think I've made my decision as to where this film should go. And Seed of Chucky's going right at the top. Woo! Nah, I'm kidding. You're going down here. Okay, so we have made an ever so small jump of 13 years. This franchise is having a slight identity crisis. Chucky films were being pumped out left, right and centre, and then we hit a dark period, the Chucky no man's land, so to speak. But then out of nowhere, Don returned like The Undertaker with a new straight-to-DVD film. Was it a reboot, a continuation? Did it want to explore the darkest depths of another character's psyche? Kinda. To be honest, The Curse of Chucky kind of asks you to fill the gaps in yourself. At least they didn't completely change Chucky's design to fit with the modern aesthetic. Dear God, take me back to 1998 where things were simple. The movie opens with an ominous package arriving at the massive, terrifying home of Nika and her mother, Sarah. Nika uses a wheelchair because, well, she was a paraplegic from birth, but there is an explanation behind all of this.
Got a delivery from Mrs. Sarah Pierce.
I'll send for it.
Cool. Whoa.
So when Sarah unboxes the package, she discovers Chucky, who looks completely different now. But don't worry, because there is a method behind the madness. Like I said earlier, if Chucky wants to be trusted, especially by children, and infiltrate households, he has to look the part. This film is what I'd also consider the full embracing of the CCU, the Chucky Cinematic Universe, because things get connected in the strangest of ways. One aspect is the fact that Tiffany is back. I guess her and Charles are in cahoots again. It's never really explained why, but, you know, make of it what you will. It's been 13 years, couldn't get enough of that Chucky goodness. Another interesting thing is that Nika is played by Fiona Dourif, Brad Dourif's daughter. I guess she wanted to continue her dad's legacy. I mean, to be fair, I really like her in this film. I'm looking at my monitor. I just... The things I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, honestly. God's sake, where did he even get this? The mansion is almost its own character here. Every corner is dimly lit, every hallway echoes with the sound of footsteps, and the whole atmosphere feels eerie and claustrophobic. Shortly after Chucky arrives, Sarah, Nika's mum, mysteriously dies under suspicious circumstances. Okay, this is a nice shot. It's nice to see the cinematography is actually, you know, kind of being revived. Her death is, of course, ruled a suicide, but Nika feels unsettled. This event sets the stage for the horror that's about to unfold. What a coincidence. You know what's crazy with this film? This film had a budget of $5 million. Like that is insane. Which is of course why it's mostly based in one location, and yet the film utilizes these resources really wisely. I mean, the practical effects for Chucky were really well executed, and the CGI enhancements were subtle enough to maintain the character's iconic look. The production design and atmospheric cinematography compensated for the financial limitations, and it makes the film feel polished and professional, unlike a certain other film with a higher budget. After Sarah's death, the family gathers at the mansion for the wake. Here we meet the rest of the characters.
She was fine.
Barb, who's Nika's sister, she's got a bit of a superiority complex. Ian, Barb's husband, he's a bit of a pushover. That's about it. Ian definitely plays this in his spare time. Alice, Barb and Ian's young daughter, and Jill, Alice's nanny, who has a secret romantic relationship with Barb. Very naughty. Oh my god. You also got Father Frank, who is played by A. Martinez. I hope he doesn't die. The film sets up each character to reflect a particular family tension. Barb, for example, wants control of the house and clearly resents Nika for being a burden. Ian is just kind of oblivious and is more interested in his own escapist fantasies. And Alice, well, poor Alice, just wants a friend. And she makes the unfortunate choice of bonding with the only thing available in the house. Good choice, kid. As the night progresses, strange things begin happening around the mansion. Oh no, okay. This whole dinner scene is probably my favourite part of the film. The tension in these films is finally back. You got the soundtrack creeping in. You don't know who's got the poison. Is it the kid? Is it the mum? Is it Ian? No one cares about Ian.
Maybe we put too much oregano in.
Alice, sweetheart, it's not that bad. Eat it.
Fucking hell, calm down. Seriously though, I think all elements put together make this really solid scene. It feels more methodical, it's taken the whodunit trope from the original Child's Play films, and it's putting a bit of extra seasoning on it. I mean, instead of seasoning, it's poison, but you know, it's kinda cool. Rest in peace, Father Frank. You were truly one of the best.
Father, can you hear me? Father. Just hang on, we're gonna get you out.
Can I squeeze in a few minutes with that?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Let me explain.
Tom.
Nika, who is observant and suspicious of the Chucky doll, begins investigating. She actually finds newspaper clippings linking Chucky's backstory to her own family, uncovering the dark history of Charles Lee Ray. This was cool because now we have the angle of this film. It's definitely the slowest paced Chucky film out of like all of them, to be fair, but it's trying to take us back to those suspenseful horror roots. Also because it takes 44 entire minutes before Chucky even speaks. This whole time I'm just craving to hear Brad's voice again.
Shut up!
You shut up.
Just keep in mind the big gap between Seed of Chucky and this film. Like, you know how many people were just excited to hear this after all these years? Once he's comfortable in his surroundings, Chucky begins his killing spree in a classic slasher style. And the first up on the menu is Jill, the nanny, who dies in a gruesome electrical accident. Truly a tragedy. What's interesting about Chucky's killing style in this film specifically is that every death is kind of unique, as in they're just really well thought out. Even the tone of this film in comparison with Bride and Seed is night and day. I mean, even the cinematography is telling us that we are making a horror. You've had your comedy, we're starting fresh, we're going to make this doll scary again. The inclusion of Charles's backstory is a good choice. It doesn't feel shoehorned in, and I'm honestly surprised it took us so long to get to this point, as opposed to all of the other adventures they went on. Nika's investigation becomes the backbone of the suspense in Curse of Chucky. She's in a wheelchair, making it difficult to navigate the mansion, especially when Chucky begins his reign of terror, but Nika is fully determined, and that determination drives her to look beyond the surface and dig into Charles Lee Ray's violent history, a discovery that ties the two together in a way I don't think a lot of people would have expected, and it's not a bad twist at all.
Chucky, I'm scared.
You fucking should be.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
You notice the second this dialogue is introduced that Brad Dourif's wit and malevolence has been totally dialed back. Instead, they're trying to emphasize his menace and his bloodlust. And it does take me back to Child's Play 2 vibes, that he's just more angry, there's more hate in him. That's not saying much because he's a serial killer, but you get the point. I suppose what made audiences feel alienated with Bride and Seed, Don, sort of took a step back and went back to the drawing board and decided, okay, let's, bring these people back in, bring the original fans of the franchise and give them a modern Chucky. A Chucky that feels like a direct continuation from Child's Play 3 as opposed to anything that happened in the middle. As Chucky escalates his violence, he doesn't just aim to kill, he chooses methods that fit each character's flaws or sins, as if he's judging each family member and kind of deciding exactly how they should pay for their actions. I want to say he's learned on the job and puts more effort into his kills. I don't know, maybe that's Tiffany's influence. Following Jill's death, Barb actually confronts Nika in a tense scene, attempting to take control of the house and assert her authority. Barb is under the impression Nika was using the doll to figure out what Barb was up to behind her husband's back, which of course is completely misconstrued.
I mean, what the hell were you waiting for? A sign from God? No, Barb, just put the fucking doll down!
But, of course, Chucky interrupts her, leading to Barb's own shocking demise. This is probably one of the most gruesome kills of the film. I mean, Chucky gouges out Barb's eye, and he reveals the scars on his own face as he smiles at her with sadistic pleasure.
You have your mother's eyes.
I have to admit, the second I saw Chucky's scars, this just brought a smile to my face, I can't lie. It's like seeing an old friend again, you know? Barb's death is as symbolic as it is brutal. I mean, she loses the very thing she used to look down on her sister with, and it's her vision of superiority. Or maybe I'm looking into this too deeply, I don't know. Oh my god, Ian! Ian's come through! He's the hero of the story! I can't believe it. He's gonna save the day! He's gonna stop Chucky once and for all!
Ian! Ian, what are you doing?
What the hell have you done with my daughter, Nika?
Dealing with just a single location and this amount of characters can lead to a limited scope, and it can also lead to pacing issues when you're not granting enough time to specific things. But hey look, there's a lot of films out there that have used one location, 2 locations plus, and those films have been masterpieces. A lack of locations is zero excuse to fail in making a story which is compelling, and this story is, you know, it's pretty good. After Barb's death, Nika finally confronts Chucky, and he reveals the truth. In a flashback, we learn that Charles Lee Ray was once obsessed with Nika's mother, Sarah, years before he actually became Chucky, and Charles kidnapped Sarah in a twisted attempt to force her love. Charles, come on, man. How dare you go after anyone that isn't Tiffany? When she tried to escape, he stabbed her in the stomach while she was pregnant with Nika, resulting in Nika's disability. So, it does come full circle. This violent act not only scarred Sarah, but it also sent Chucky on a path of twisted revenge against her family. This film delves into the psychological a lot more. Chucky's violence is now tied directly to Nika's past, effectively making him a horror figure who won't stop until he's destroyed everything Sarah loves. I love it when films take creative liberties, okay? I mean, these flashback sequences look like scenes out of Sin City, and I kinda like it. Nika's battle with Chucky is about more than survival, it's a final stand against her family's tormentor. That being said, it's genuinely nerve-wracking because both have their own obvious physical disadvantages.
25 years must be the slowest murder in history.
At the end, neither person is killed. Yeah, for once, Chucky isn't shot, burned, melted, blown up, or sliced into pieces. This is the first film he actually kind of wins. So the police arrive to find the aftermath, and in a twist, Nika is blamed for the murders, as, like everyone in this franchise, no one believes that a doll could be responsible. So she's arrested. And Chucky just kind of watches, just sits there in the courtroom, with his smug little face.
Chucky, you found me!
I told you I would. And now, it's time to play.
Hide and seek?
Hide the soul.
Yep, so this entire time Alice was locked in the closet, and now Chucky has hunted her down and is gonna possess her. After all this time, he's finally found a child dumb enough to play hide the soul with. Ugh. Never thought I'd see the day.
Would you like to insure the package?
Oh, that won't be necessary.
It protects you and it protects the recipient.
I doubt that.
It's now we get a little after credits teaser of Chucky. My god, this is really the multiverse. Once again, Chucky finds Andy Barkley, someone who has practically been an enigma ever since Child's Play 3. Or technically 2 if you want to count the original actor, Alex Vincent. So I said Chucky doesn't get shot. Yeah, I lied. Honestly, seeing Andy put a shell in Chucky's head is so damn good, it is so satisfying. He spent his whole life being paranoid about this thing, you know, it's like the snail that won't stop chasing you.
Andy!
Curse of Chucky is one of the least talked about Chucky films in my opinion, but you know what, coming back to it, I actually really liked it. It revitalised the essence of horror which this franchise always had, but never fully ran with since maybe Child's Play 2. And it's also just a pretty effective slasher. I don't think it's sensational as far as horror films go, it's fairly standard, but it does do a lot of stuff right, and it's kind of underrated. I mean, it's got a simple layout, most of it happens in a single house, and it has a story with a good amount of depth to it. And I preferred that. It felt like a tighter narrative over some kind of jumbled mess, and maybe some people would have found Curse kind of boring, and it doesn't have the comedic essence that Brad Dourif usually brings to the role. This is a bit more dark, a bit more serious, a bit more horror-esque, but I just liked that it was kind of different, and not necessarily a bad different. At this point, you really understand that every film is going to give you a different range of emotions, and I like to think that's what Don went for. I'll put it in the middle of the pile. You know, sorry Seed, I love you really. Well, that is another 3 films done. Just a few more to go, and... Sorry guys, sorry. Yo, you alright? What do you mean I missed something? What? Are you serious? You're telling me I missed the single most important piece of Chucky lore? Okay. Okay, I'll check it out. Alright, see ya. Okay. 1 second, guys, hang on. Chucky's Vacation Slides.
Where are them pork rinds? We're making people sit through this shit. The least we can do is offer them some pork rinds.
Don't say that, Chucky. People love looking at vacation slides. Chucky, this is in Malibu at the start of our trip.
Well, wait a minute. What's that?
Chucky, I didn't know you killed anyone. You promised you were going to cut back.
Well, there's only one thing to do.